Welcome everybody to a new video after the Q1 earnings call that I've covered previously on the channel. This time I'm going to speak about some strategic options or things on the horizon, what NIO could do, should do, in case that they want to really achieve profitability, not only depending on scaling volume, right? I may do a separate video on my outlook on the volume, the car sales and such, but NIO is much more than just a car company, and therefore other factors could chime in. I previously spoke about the R&D tech license fees that NIO may get from 47 Ventures, for example, or carbon credits. By the way, none of which I think will be necessary to really achieve a Q4 profitability, but would definitely help, right? But in this video, I will talk about different things, as you can see in the background. For example, the topic of chips and a whole other new ideas and topics that may be a little bit more unrelated. So it'll be a mix and a summary of different topics. I hope you still appreciate that. In case you like that, please like this video, share it with your friends on social media, and make sure to subscribe to this channel. By the way, you could also become a channel member, at which point, if you join here on YouTube, just click on become a member, then you will also receive additional videos that are usually Patreon only videos. Speaking of patrons, in my Patreon community or members chat, there have been for a while proponents that have been very, very bullish on the NIO chip, because not only it's very powerful, and as we've heard now in the earnings call, it saves them a ton of money, but also they see the potential that NIO could sell those chips to other car makers maybe, or even strike other deals with the industry. Now, I've been always pretty conservative, maybe even pessimistic on that, but in the last couple of days something happened which I think is actually increasing the chances. I don't know whether or not you have been following that, but actually Xiaomi, which now by the way also makes its cars, but also is a smartphone manufacturer foremost, has come up with a new self-designed chip. And what we got, and that's maybe part of this whole greater geopolitics issue, is that the Trump administration or the US, the deep state, whoever is doing that, I don't know, was slapping new sanctions on China. And some analysts out there are actually speaking of that this is sort of a nuclear option in terms of what they could potentially do, other than banning lithography machines. But now what they also have done is to ban software from Western OEM and providers going to China for used for developing chips. Now, China is not independent in this area yet, and they rely on this chip making software. There's more details to that, also how that relates to NVIDIA, but also some of these providers are US companies, some of them are German companies even. Doesn't matter so much. What I think this could do is, well, first off, China always, they've seen this coming, possibly, they've telegraphed that move, and they have been working on their own substitutions in the software area as well, but they're still not there, right? This whole ecosystem is still developing. So I wouldn't go as far in saying as that they are already independent of that. I think those new sanctions definitely are hurting, and they are possibly used right now in this trade war conflict, because Trump sees that the tariffs really didn't hurt China that much, or at least they didn't work as a leverage. Instead, it's maybe, as we may see soon, hurting the US economy when the prices go up or products are not available anymore. And therefore, the Trump administration or whoever is going back to different measures like sanctions in order to hope to get the upper hand in this conflict again. And that was the direct result after actually Xiaomi launched their new chip, which may pose a problem to US companies like Qualcomm and such. Now, there are a couple of Chinese OEM automakers that are working on their self-developed chips, but are not there yet. I think who's there is this company, NIO. They have self-developed the chip. It's now in mass manufacturing. We don't know really who is manufacturing it for NIO. Could be the Koreans with, who knows, Samsung or so on. Could be in Taiwan. Could be domestically manufactured. Li Bin has been very tight-lipped around this topic because it's very political. And I remember after NIO Day at the press conference where I've been, when one of the press people was asking about this matter, he said, we better not talk about that. So I haven't heard about anybody buying an ET9, dismantling it, and looking at what's printed on the circuit board of the chip, where it's made of or coming from. I'm sure somebody is doing that. If not a hedge fund, it's maybe some of the competitors doing that. So at some point, we will know who's making it. But up until then, we don't know. The only thing we know is that this chip is out in mass manufacturing, and it is now also being distributed in more NIO models. So the ET9 was the first, then the new models will get it, and in the future also Onvo, that was the news in the Onvo call, in the earnings call, will get it as well. So you can see NIO is keen on bringing that chip into as many cars as possible in order to scale it up and to have a big demand for these chips. And so, yes, of course, being always a little bit more open than other car makers out there. So I talked in the past about NIO's more collaborative partnership approach that we mostly see in the battery swapping area. But if you watched NIO Day, the NIO Innovation Day closely, then you'll also heard about how they are trying to open source this whole software ecosystem plus the app part. And I think they might be also willing to give these chip designs or the chips away, of course, against a fee, right? So yes, potentially this could happen, but I did not really see that happen until the US slapped those sanctions on China, which I first expect the reaction of the Chinese companies will be that either they already have in place what they need, or in the future, because, yes, the software is still, running currently for designing those chips, but it needs updates, it needs, ongoing licenses and so on. So I think at some point we can expect that there will be a real problem for the companies using those Western software designing chips, and they can not longer work around that. And so at some point they either will be stuck with older software or software that is not maintained anymore, or will be using pirated software, or maybe some workarounds like having overseas offices working on their behalf or whatever. There will always be a way of dealing with that situation to some extent, until which China goes whole domestically and with their own solutions. I think that will be the outcome of the whole, we see that different industries of this whole US-China battle. It will be that China becomes more and more self-sufficient and uses less and less US tech and so on, which in my opinion, if you ask me, it's a stupid idea from the US, because otherwise we would have them dependent on our stuff. And that's exactly what the US now sees, that they are dependent on Chinese output when it comes to, for example, rare earth materials or magnets or other stuff going into even weapons, but also in the normal industry, the automotive industry and such. So it would have been much smarter for the West to make China dependent on us as well. Instead, China is going fully independent, and we will see that also happening with those auto OEMs. But it might be, it opens a short window of opportunity here, I think, in which possibly some of the automakers who have not progressed as far as NIO to knock on the door of NIO and ask for help, because NIO has now this in mass production. I think Xiaopeng has a successful tape out of their chip, but it's not in the cars yet. Li Auto, I think, has not got to a successful tape out, meaning it's still in the R&D stage in a sense. It's not ready for mass production. For Xiaomi and a self-developed chip, or Huawei and others, I don't know exactly. I haven't researched it too much. I guess most of them are running their own secret projects. And I think why I've been so skeptical about the resale of a chip is essentially because I think most people who want to have a chip actually want to vertically integrate and be able to adopt their algorithms specific on their hardware and stuff, and also become as much independent as possible. So that's why most people will opt to make their own R&D, and that's why everybody is going basically on their own way. But now, ironically, those sanctions may actually stop that, and we may see a little bit of an industry consolidation and a scrambling together for a common, more pragmatic partnership solution in that field. And that is, I think, opening an opportunity there for NIO with this chip. And we may see, also now driven from NIO's internal need for breaking even, that they may see more efforts in going out and trying to be, more interested in selling some of their parts of what they have achieved through R&D. Speaking of another part, and that's why I say it's not really connected, but a couple of different topics here in one. For the battery partnership, I've talked in previous videos about this whole CATL NIO partnership and so on, but I think that's still the main way to go in order to monetize quicker and get more to profitability. I think that's the main asset to leverage. We clearly see things happening between CATL and NIO there in the background, and if you're reading the signs, you see obviously that there's something going on. Which direction yet, it's not entirely sure, but I think NIO must think of ways of monetizing battery swapping more. There are many different ways of doing that, right? There are many different revenue streams potentially, if it's related to services, if it's relating to partnering, if it's relating to grid balancing and grid integration stuff. That's the main way NIO should work, because essentially this is also a way of subsidizing their cars in a sense of not only having this USP on a technology and financial level, but also on a marketing branding level. So that's the main way to go, in my opinion. And so that's new things of NIO thinking of getting to profitability in Q4 that are currently emerging, that I'm seeing as strategic options on top of what I've talked about in previous videos, right, with the whole technology license fees, for example, from 4.7, the whole thing about whether or not they are able to book some credits, carbon credits, right, which they haven't done so yet. This whole, it's a series of different options, which is unclear which way it's going and which way will really monetize and which way is on, and which part is only something to think about, but not really applicable, not really going to monetize the way we think. Ultimately, I think, and that's reason for another separate video, that NIO can actually achieve a Q4 profitability without all of that what I've just talked through, but all of that what I've just talked through are potential boosts to that, and will certainly help, because indirectly they will also help with sales, but most importantly it would help NIO on the bottom line. So we are not really only dependent on that, but given how dire the situation is for NIO and how quickly they need to become profitable, and how big of a task that is, it would certainly help. And so I think NIO is really looking in all of these options, and they're clearly on the table. And that's the way I'm currently looking at that and thinking about it. Let me know your thoughts about that in the comments. Thanks for watching, and see you in my next videos.